What needs to change for the Rams after Sean McVay's most heartbreaking regular season loss? We've got week 3 PFF grades, why Tutu Atwell isn't getting opportunities, and why Terrance Ferguson isn't either. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramily, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rams, your daily podcast covering your Los Angeles Rams, free and available wherever you hear podcasts. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're also available over on YouTube, so if you haven't yet, do us a huge favor. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, hit the like button. And if you write us a review over on the podcast, we'll read it on the show. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. If you haven't yet, also be sure to check out Locked On NFL every single day. All the hottest stories, go over to Locked On NFL and check that out. As always, I'm joined by the Rams pre-half and post-game show host for the Rams flagship radio station, ESPN 710 LA. He's in his 11th season covering your Los Angeles Rams, the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers. You can follow him on X at Travis Rogers. And on today's episode, we are continuing to process and unpack what was the most brutal and heartbreaking regular season loss of the Sean McVay era. Sean McVay talked about it. We'll get into some things that he said. We'll do some winners and losers. We got some PFF grades. But first, today's episode of Locked On Rams brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. All right, Travis. So Sean McVay, he did his weekly show with JB Long, had some really interesting things to say in it. And the first thing that really kind of stood out to me was his comments on just the block overall and just kind of giving credit to that Philadelphia defensive line that was able to create so much pressure. And he mentioned just getting that pressure on the interior. It wasn't the fact that it was a low kick, and the fact that, look, Joshua Carty had just done such a fantastic job and just pinning the ball in there where he did in the zone and just making the kicks that he did make. But he really tipped his hat to the Philadelphia Eagles defense. I look at this offensive line and know they could do a better job. But yeah, I mean, you do have to give some credit to the Eagles in this one.
I'll give the Eagles some credit for sure. They did a good job. They got a chance to block 2 kicks. But let me ask you this. If there are 3 blocked field goals in 2 weeks, is your line doing a good job? No, they're not. And they've blocked 3 kicks or had 3 kicks blocked in the last 2 weeks. There was 1 against Tennessee. There were 2 in the fourth quarter against the Eagles. We were talking about this on my radio show yesterday with the Super Bowl champ, DeMarco Farr. And he thought that to put it in baseball terms for a second, that the Rams are tipping their pitches, that the cadence, the rhythm, the timing of it all had become very, very predictable. And the Eagles knew exactly when that ball was going to get snapped. And they actually were getting a jump on the snap as opposed to the Rams being the team that was getting a jump on the snap. And that's why it went the way that it did. And, look, occasionally a kick is going to get blocked. That's part of football. But when 2 kicks get blocked in 1 quarter, I don't know if that's the defensive team doing a great job or the offensive team doing a bad job. I tend to go back towards the latter. I get it. The Eagles are really good. The Eagles made a bunch of plays down the line that certainly, put them in a position to win that game. But I'm a little more critical of that. Josh Carty did do a good job. He made 4 field goals. He pinned them deep in their own end time after time after time with those knuckleball kicks that he was able to deliver over and over again. But I don't know, man. I mean, that was they practically ripped the ball out of the holder's hands. That low kick and never got off the ground. I don't know how that's anything other than a failure of the kick team.
I think if you're Chase Blackburn, I think that if this continues for the entire year, that he might lose his job. Like, I think it's that bad. I think the Rams legitimately have a special teams issue, and you're absolutely right. I mean, you look at how improbable this is, and give Joshua Carty credit. He's making the makeable kicks when they're actually getting them off cleanly. Yeah. The issue is you're getting multiple kicks blocked. And I went back and looked it up. The Eagles are the first team since 1978 to block 2 field goals in the fourth quarter. What happened on Sunday just never happens.
Right.
And you add the fact that this is a team throughout the year in 3 games. They have 36 net yards per punt. That's 26. 44.6 yards per punt. That's 28. The punting game has not been great. The kicking game, you got 4 touchbacks on kickoffs. That's the 9th highest. 7 for 8 on extra points. That's 87.5%. And 6 for 8 on kicks, which is pretty solid. But let's just be honest. I mean, that was an all-time bad performance by special teams. And I think that you just need to reevaluate everything. And yes, sure. Like the Eagles have really, really good players, but to execute the way that they did against a line this good, I mean, there had to have been just a better plan going into this.
Yeah, no, I keep coming back to, I feel like they were tipping their pitches. Clearly the Eagles saw something that they were able to take advantage of multiple times. Maybe there's one thing, we talk about this all the time, that sometimes special teams coaches will they'll see something. And it's like, okay, we got one shot at this. We get one shot to exploit this weakness, because the second we show that we know what they're doing, they're going to change up. The Rams never changed up. They kept doing the same thing, and they got the same result again. It was terribly disappointing. And I know that, they're going to use it for motivation going into Indianapolis. It doesn't end their season or anything crazy like that. I think that there are some positives to take out of it. The fact that, we were this close to a blowout, Doug, with the Rams just absolutely putting it on them. But it was a bad loss. It was a terrible performance by the special teams unit in the fourth quarter. And like you just said, 1978. I mean, come on, man. I mean, that's nearly 50 years ago. When something happens once every 50 years, it's not because somebody else did something great. It's because somebody else screwed something up.
Yeah, the offense came out and they were hot, but I mean, you literally gave Nick Sirianni and that Eagles team the very worst half that they had ever had as a group, holding the 33 yards. And you just did not get a big enough lead. 19-7 is not going to cut it in that situation. You need to be able to score touchdowns. We talked about that yesterday, but yeah.
Let me ask you something. Was there at any point in that game where you thought, okay, it's over? There were plenty points for me where it's like, okay, they're in a really good spot. One more. Okay, they're in a really good spot. One more. But they kept kicking field goals. They gave up that touchdown to the Eagles really quickly. And there was never a point where I'm like, it's over. There were a bunch of spots where, okay, they're in really good shape, but they let a really good team hang around. Did you ever feel like it was over?
Absolutely never. Until the clock hits 0 against a really good team, I'm always going to worry. It's like I hear the Jaws theme in my brain the whole game. Dun-dun, the other team's coming. Dun-dun. I hear it the whole entire game. And what was going through my mind, Travis, was when you see this Rams team lose to good teams throughout the last couple of seasons, what is the common thread in those games? It's the Rams' inability to convert in the red zone. We saw it against the Lions in 2023, over 3 in the red zone. There's just so many examples to talk about. And in this one, it was the same situation. And I think, too, you just look at these little moments, like the hold on Coleman Shelton, just the overthrows by Matthew Stafford, just the play calling, not going to a run game that was working. I think it really boggles my mind sometimes where, look, I was thinking about this, like, could you get I was thinking about a new position in the NFL. You got the head coach, the offensive coordinator, and the red zone coordinator. Like, can we get like someone who just specializes in red zone plays? I know I'm only like half joking about this, but it feels like there's 2 versions of Sean McVay's offense, right? There's the one that's methodical, that is continuing to exploit what's working, and then all of a sudden you just throw that out once you get into the red zone. The run, they were averaging 5.2 yards per carry on the ground. Blake Corum was doing it. One of my big takeaways, Travis, is, we've been trying to build this narrative for the first couple games is, Blake Corum is better than Kyron. No, Kyron's better than Blake Corum. One of my big takeaways is, no, they need them both, and they're both essential to what's going to be a really good run game for this team. And we saw that. And when your quarterback's not making throws, too, and he's grabbing his back, maybe that's extra incentive to not force the ball to Devontae Adams and just go with what's working.
Yes, and yes. I agree with everything you're saying, that Stafford was off. Stafford was not, it wasn't an A+ afternoon for Matthew Stafford. So, okay, he's not playing at his absolute best. What's plan B? Run the ball. Well, plan B was working. Like you said, both of these guys had big days. It's not a this guy or that guy. It's both of them. run both of them over and over again. And I think there are two fair criticisms of Sean McVay in his, we're in the season number 9 with Sean McVay here in LA. I wouldn't trade him for one single coach in the rest of the league. I think he's the best guy there is at building culture, at bouncing back, all of these things. He's terrific, absolutely terrific. No complaints other than these two. And that is timeout management has always been a weird one for him. They seem to burn timeouts at really weird times. Didn't really cost him against Philadelphia, but I think that's something that they're not great at. And number 2 is they stop running the ball. There are just too many instances where the running game is working and they go away from it, or they never even start in the first place, that they get pass happy, especially in the red zone and especially inside the 10-yard line where they go away from it. It seems like way too often. And the only other thing that I want to throw in there, going way back to what you said at the beginning of this, Doug, about Coleman Shelton's holding penalty, the NFL needs to come up with something that is beyond holding, like extreme holding, super holding, ultra holding. Like that was a flat out WWE takedown. That wasn't even holding. I don't know what that was, but that was the most wild offensive lineman tackle I've ever seen in my life.
You joke about that, Travis, but I think you're brilliant because I want that for like almost all penalties, right? Like the targeting penalty in college football. Like there should be levels, like extreme target, like that's when you miss things. I'm totally 100% about that for sure. But I will say too that we are the Keep It 100 Rams podcast. We're not the one that's going to blame the referees. Yes, the refereeing was bad at times. There were some missed calls, like there always is. One thing I've learned by talking to these players, I can't think of one time that you go and talk to a player and they blame it on the ref. They almost never do because they know that it comes down to so many different plays, and that's just kind of not where it is. But I do want to point something out. I want to read a comment before we get to the next segment. This is from Acedo, 1794. What a random number. It should be Acedo set 1978. Last time he had 2 blocked field goals in a fourth quarter. But no, he said, this podcast keeps me sane after all Rams losses, especially this one. Travis and D-Mac, I needed this. You're my therapist. What a heartbreaker. Great to see y'all relate. So we're their shoulder to cry on for sure.
Is there some sort of like virtual tip jar that we can get him to throw like some, I don't know, a nickel into the bag or something like that? We'll take. I'm glad it worked out for you.
Give me your banking information and I'll put it in the description and they can wire the funds directly.
Perfect. All
right, sounds good. We'll get that Venmo request. But coming up next, more things that need to change. Do the Rams have a Tutu Atwell third wide receiver problem?
Yes.
Coming up next on Locked On Rams.
Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5-hour energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with 0 sugar and 0 crashes. And what I love most about 5-hour energy is just how portable they are, right? Big taste, tiny shot. You can take it anywhere and get that boost you need when you need it. Put it right in your pocket, right? I absolutely love the old school grape one, right? That is my favorite flavor because it's refreshing and it gives you that little quick lift before a very busy day, right? I do a couple of podcasts, I do a radio show, I got a family, there's a lot going on, and sometimes you need that little boost, right? So why not make it 5-hour energy? It kicks in fast, it's sugar-free, so I don't have to worry about coming down and crashing later on. Enough with the boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5-hour energy shots. Get the favorites you love or be bold and try something new in store and online at www.5hourenergy.com or on Amazon today.
And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Big shout out to those everyday listeners out there watching, listening to every single episode of Locked On Rams. Lots of new viewers, lots of new listeners lately. And if you are new, join that Everyday Listeners Club. That way you'll be the most informed Rams fan and you won't miss a thing about your favorite team. All right, Travis here. In our second segment, we're going to get into some things that need to change. I mean, we're kind of done belly aching about how bad of a loss this was, right? It's kind of don't present a problem without having a solution, that kind of mindset, even though I'm down to just talk about the problems without a solution.
Me too.
You know what I'm saying? I'm totally here for that life too, but one of the big glaring issues on the rewatch is Stafford to Devontae, Stafford to Puka, Stafford, Devontae, Stafford to Puka. And Tutu Atwell, as a guy they brought back on a $10 million contract, has got to be one of the most head-scratching decisions that this Rams team has made in the last couple of seasons. And this is not the Tutu Atwell is trash, Tutu Atwell is bad. I mean, you can if you want, but they're not using him. So what was the point of bringing him back? So I think that as much as this is about Tutu Atwell not being the guy that they thought he was going to be when they drafted him, it's why, if you're the Rams, do you continue to bring back someone you are not going to use? He feels like Van Jefferson 2.0, a guy that he's back for no reason. And he had started the first 2 games. This last game, it was Jordan Whittington. And Jordan Whittington, even though he's not getting thrown the football, he is a better blocker, so he can help this team. So there's zero reason for Tutu Atwell to be on this team at this point.
Yeah, it's funny, Doug. The everydayers will know this. I think one of the things that you and I like the most about the Rams, and one of the things that we admire about how they run their operation, is they make decisions based on production. They make decisions based on who can help the team win on any given Sunday, on any given season. That they don't dig their heels in unnecessarily on players to try to make it work or to try to make it be right. We've listed the examples of this before. You go back to Todd Gurley after they paid him when they realized it really wasn't working the way that they needed to. They moved on from Todd Gurley. They paid Jared Goff, and then they moved on from Jared Goff and went and got Matthew Stafford. Go back to Deshaun Jackson. They brought him in and they realized, hey, no, this isn't a great fit, and they moved on from him relatively quickly. But for whatever reason, it seems like they are really trying to make the Tutu Atwell thing. They want to be right about it. They want to be like, no, we drafted this. He's a second-round draft pick, and we want to get the most. Logan Bruss is another example. Second round, they're like, hey, look, we got to move on. This isn't working out. Tutu seems to be the exception to that, and I'm with you. I don't quite understand it. It's not that he's ineffective. He is, but that he's ineffective mostly because he's not playing. He's just not on the field. And I don't understand why they re-signed him. I didn't understand it in the moment. I don't understand it right now. Who knows? Maybe they're getting ready to unleash him at some point, Doug, that you and I are not able to see at this point. Maybe. I mean, I guess that's the best possible outcome. But, like you said, Whittington Adams is going to get the targets. Nakua is going to get the targets. I think they need to get the tight ends involved. We'll talk about that coming up in just a little bit. But that third wide receiver needs to do something other than just run go routes and get out of the way. And Whittington can block. You saw it on the telecast. They were talking about it over and over and over again. That part of what makes the Rams so effective is the way that their wide receivers operate in the running game. Atwell can't do that. He's too small. He's just not physically up for what they ask Cooper Kupp to do or Puka Nakua to do or Robert Woods to do. He's just not that type of player. And since they did the re-signing, it just doesn't add up to me, and I don't think it's ever going to.
Yeah, and he was throwing one pass and he dropped it, right? I mean, you're gonna get one opportunity to drop it. Why would they go back to you, right? So it's not piling on to Atwell, but the truth of the matter is if he was impressing in practice, he was impressing. I mean, they give playing time to guys that earn it, and that's the truth. They give opportunities to guys that earn it, and they need a third wide receiver, and they need a third option. So if it's not Jordan Whittington, then it makes you wonder what's up with the tight end position, and that was one of the big questions that Sean McVay talked about. I mean, he talked a little bit about Tutu Atwell. He said he's doing it we can control. I think a lot of instances, our job is to try to be able to win the games. There are a couple chances in some of the things that you try to call to get guys involved. Ultimately, our job is to play the game how it unfolds. Basically, to paraphrase what Sean McVay said, he was essentially saying that, hey, nothing's going to change with Tutu. He wasn't saying, usually it's, hey, we got to do better to get him opportunities. Yeah. He's not saying that anymore.
No, the tone changed. I agree with you that, I think you and I are both pretty fluent in Sean McVay ease, right? And the difference between, I need to do a better job of putting them in positions to succeed. This one's on me. We know what that means. And then we know what, hey, look, sometimes you just got to go try to win the game. I think we know what that means. And I think it means that he's likely, going to get fewer and fewer opportunities. Look, who knows? Crazier things have happened where, he is good for a PI down the field occasionally, but for $10 million, it feels like that money could have been spent in some other places.
I totally agree. I mean, cornerback is the first thing that kind of comes to mind. But speaking of weapons, though, they got to find that third guy. And they drafted Terrance Ferguson at Oregon with the 46th pick. That was their highest pick in the last draft. There you go. Show the Oregon. Dude, that's my national championship pick. You just made me almost go on a crazy tangent because that's my national championship pick. You know why? Because they got my boy Dante Moore. Once a Bruin, always a Bruin. We're going to count that as a national championship if they win for Dante Moore. Okay. But take care of my boy. Don't hurt him. But on the Coach McVay show, he talked about Terrance Ferguson. And this is going to be something that I think we love monitoring things. Add this to the monitor list. What's happening with Terrance Ferguson? And McVay said about Ferguson, I think we've got tremendous depth at the tight end position. Got a guy in Tyler Higbee who's been doing it at a high clip for a long time. Colby Parkinson, I think, has taken tremendous steps, as has Davis Allen. And you really look at it, he did miss some critical time throughout training camp with the groin injury. But this is where I'm optimistic. He said he's going to be a guy that is going to be a big-time player for us. I have zero doubt. So it kind of goes along with what you've been saying this entire year, where it's the tight end position. There's a lot to learn. He has missed some time with the groin injury. Sean McVay typically is not someone who just hits the ground running with a lot of offensive players that are on the skills side when it comes to his offense and things like that. So I still believe that, yes, even though he's been limited early on, that you haven't seen me. Davis Allen has been pretty trusted in certain spots, but there's none of these guys that are stretching, right? Like that hybrid-y, like what Bowers does or anything like that. I mean, and I truly believe with the lack of a third wide receiver, Terrance Ferguson, I think his development could be accelerated knowing that, because you just can't ride. I mean, Puka Nacua, they've been going him so hard, leading the league in catches, things like that. You're in week 3, and Devontae Adams is on the north of 30, right? At some point, you're going to find a third weapon. I'm hoping that Terrance Ferguson could be that guy.
Yeah, and you would assume, Doug, that somebody's going to be wide open too, right? That with the amount of times they go to Puka, with the threat that Devontae Adams is, and look, Devontae wasn't great on Sunday, but he wasn't bad either. You know, he made some really nice plays along the way. Those guys are doing what you would hope they would do, but you're going to need that third body. And like we just talked about in the wide receiver position, it doesn't seem like it's going to come from there. The 2 running backs are killing it. And that leaves the tight ends. And McVay's right about Tyler. Tyler Higbee's been here a long time. He's had a great career. He's had some really big games, et cetera, et cetera. But he doesn't make a bunch of plays offensively. Like, he's not a pass-catching threat in the way that I think you and I are talking about. And Colby Parkinson, okay, he's been in the league a long time. It really hasn't happened. You know my philosophy. If it was going to happen, it would have happened by now. So I'm going to kind of move on from that one. Davis Allen's interesting. He's got a couple of touchdowns so far, but other than the touchdowns, they really haven't thrown him the ball at all to speak of. I think he's got 1 or 2 catches outside of the 2 touchdowns. And Ferguson was a high draft pick. Ferguson was the guy that they said, had they stayed in the first round, they would have taken him anyway. That, you know, so he's a quasi first rounder. He was a high second rounder. And he's basically hasn't played. I know that he's been on the field a couple of times, but he really has not impacted the game at all. Maybe it's offense. Maybe it's him getting up to speed on scheme and understanding the variables that come along with playing that position. But they're going to need a tight end to impact some of these games. And late in the fourth quarter, like we just saw against Philadelphia, if I'm a defensive coordinator, where's Puka? Where's Adams? Well, I need to really lock in on those guys. The tight ends, I really don't have to concern myself with, because the Rams haven't availed themselves of that. And I think there are big opportunities there.
For sure. And 2, I think that could work the other way as well. As great as Devontae is and as great as Puka is, just having someone that could put a little more pressure on the defense and maybe just on a tiny level make them focus on a play for Terrance Ferguson and maybe give Puka and Devontae just a little bit of a wiggle room compared to, we could just completely isolate on those guys and focus on them and not worry about them. I mean, I look at the preseason. Dresser win to Terrance Ferguson on that back shoulder fade. I mean, that was a play where you're like, wow, we haven't seen that from a Rams tight end. And to have that, and yes, Tyler Higbee, sure, greatest tight end of all time. Not too many great Pro Bowl all-time tight ends to talk about, right? So, and you look at Davis Allen has, like you said, made some plays in the end zone, and Colby Parkinson, they signed in $22.5 million. They guarantee him $15 million. Kind of hasn't been that guy, but I'm all about the mystery box. I'm about the mystery box. Remember that episode of Family Guy when Peter and Lois, they go to the timeshare pitch and they offer them one of those boats, those model boats, or they can pick the mystery box. And Peter Griffin's like, a boat's a boat, but the mystery box could be anything. It could even be a boat.
Yeah.
And they open the box and it's 2 tickets to a crappy comedy show, right? And then he goes home and he's like, super, they show, like, they cut to him. It's just super. I'm about the mystery box. To me, it's so enticing, so intriguing because you haven't had that element. And the fact, like you said, he's like a quasi first rounder.
Yeah, look, they're going to have to try it at some point. They're going to have to open the box before too long. And let's see what it is. And look, maybe he's not ready. Maybe he needs a little more seasoning. This is one of these times where I trust Sean McVay implicitly, that if he feels like he's not ready to go and contribute, I believe he's probably not ready to go and contribute. But let's coach him up. Let's get him ready to be in there because like you said at the beginning, it just feels like it unlocks so many other things. And let's find out what's in the box.
Absolutely. And coming up next, let's find out what the best or worst PFF grades. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
The NFL season is here, right? And FanDuel is making sure that you are ready for each and every game with a can't-miss offer. Because right now, right this second, new customers, you can bet just $5. And if that $5 bet wins, here's what you get. $300 in bonus bets to use across the app however you like. And that's what's great about FanDuel, right? It fits however you like to bet. If you like to bet player props, FanDuel has player props. If you like building same-game parlays, guess what FanDuel has? Same-game parlays. Do you like live betting, right? Jumping in as the action unfolds. Yep, you got it. 3 for 3. FanDuel again. It makes every game more exciting. Whether you're watching your team or you're just keeping an eye out on your fantasy lineup, FanDuel's got you covered, right? Quick, easy, and it is the best way to add that little something extra to Sundays. Oh, by the way, baseball playoffs right around the corner. FanDuel's got that too. Whatever you like, FanDuel's got it. So let me ask you, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app right now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Okay, so just a reminder, tomorrow we've got like 5 reasons to be optimistic after the Eagles loss. So we'll look at the Mitch lot of half full tomorrow. But we got fans love PFF grades. I know former players don't, namely Michael Brockers, but we got shout out to Michael Brockers from the squad show. That's my guy. But the PFF grades from week 2, there's some from week 3, there's some that really stick out. And we'll start with the positives. You can guess the offense. Puka Nacua led all Rams with an 83.8 PFF grade. Kyron had a good day with an 80. Dotson's been great. Man, K-Dot's the real deal, right? 76.2. Yeah. Corum, 69.8. Stafford, 69.2. Really the standout is Puka Nacua. I mean, just 11 catches for 112 yards. But Williams and Corum both being really good against the Eagles. I think that, could be the biggest takeaway. I mean, Williams, he forced 4 missed tackles. He had 3 runs of 10-plus yards. For all the talk of Williams, he had a really, really good afternoon. I think we have to point that out.
Yeah, no, he absolutely did. And I think you pointed out an important part of that. He did it against the Eagles, right? Like this is not some, just run-of-the-mill NFL team. This is one of the best defensive fronts in the entire league. And he had a really big day. And I've gone from thinking, hey, maybe there's something there, maybe there isn't. I am a firm believer now, D-Mac, in Blake Corum being good makes Kyron Williams better. Every time Blake Corum has a nice game, it seems like Kyron Williams has one too. It's like that, oh, no, I'm going to make sure I hold on to this gig. I'm going to make sure that I get the lion's share of the carries. And I think it works great. I think those two guys kind of yin and yang each other really, even though they're similar, but I think that they're pushing one another. And I still would not mind seeing Blake Corum get an extra carry or two along the way. Kind of going back to Puka for a second, you tell me what you think about this, because here's where my head is on Puka Nacua. It's taken me a minute, but I think I'm finally there. Going back to his rookie season, it's like, wow, Puka's a great player for a 6th-round draft pick. Then it morphed into, hey, Puka's just a pretty good player, right? Puka, I don't care where he's drafted. Puka's a nice guy to have on your team. And now here in year 3, I think we're moving into a totally different category where Puka's one of the best wide receivers in the league, right? It's not just that he's good value for where you got him, or it was a steal in the draft. We're talking. I know that he's not doing stuff like Jamar Chase and Jordan Jefferson as far as like the super poppy kind of stuff, but my goodness, is that guy effective and unbelievably tough. And it just seems that every week we're saying, you know what else had another great day? Puka Nacua. And I'm just starting to look at him totally differently as simply just one of the best wide receivers in the whole league.
No doubt about it. He literally is the number one rated receiver on PFF. He is number one, and he was the 177th pick. And it is not just, it went from a feel-good story to the sky's the limit for this guy, that he literally is someone that you could say production-wise, I mean, he has a unique skill set. He's not your traditional wide receiver, right? I mean, he's big and physical. He knows how to read zones. He just has a great feel for the game, and he just knows how to make plays. And I firmly believe that, look, he might not look and feel like a Jamar Chase, a CeeDee Lamb, a Justin Jefferson. He's not one of those receivers that you go into the receiver factory in the receiver lab and you make a Puka Nacua, right? But I certainly believe that he sits at that table now. I truly do believe that. And look, I mean, I'm not trying to say he's Tom Brady, right? Like, someone that, wow, he's picked at 199 and he's Tom Brady, and Puka Nacua is picked at 177. But I do think that we are on a trajectory with Puka where if he continues this for a long period of time, that he could be on that list where Tom Brady's number one on that list for like the biggest draft explosions and the biggest hidden gem findings ever. Like, he could be on that list if things continue. That's how good he is.
And I just go back to this. He is that good. He's exactly what you just described. But when in that factory that you're talking about, that maybe they didn't give him the full complement of speed like a Jefferson or a Lamb or a Chase or something like that, but they gave him like a quadruple dose of toughness. And even by NFL, look, if you play in the NFL, you're tough, right? That goes without saying. That's just one of those Annies at the table, right? You can't play in this league if you're not tough. But that dude was given toughness in buckets, and he's just running through people. He's taking big shots. He gets up, he goes out there, he does it again. I'm a huge fan of his, and I have recalibrated my expectations of, hey, this is a really good player that you got for a low draft choice. To I think we have one of the best guys in the league.
I'm with you. I'm totally with you on that. I think that it doesn't get talked about enough just because about how good he is. But I always laugh at his shoe size, by the way. My man has a size 15. Like he's got like some big feet, man.
Dude, he's got a size 15 head too. I mean, that's got a big absolute wrecking ball on top of his shoulders. He is a big, strong, powerful dude.
Yeah, he's the real deal. He's got to stay healthy. All right. So I know it's a little long show. One more though, before we get out of here. You and I, here's a fun fact. Here's a stat of the day. You and I finished with the same exact pass blocking grade as Bo Limmer, a 0.0 pass blocking grade in 5 snaps on the 5 passing plays when Dotson went out with the calf injury. Bo Limmer did not have a good day in Philly.
Had a rough day. He had a rough day. And that they decided to run behind him with the game on the line is one of those things that I will never quite be able to wrap my head around. I'm sure he's a nice guy. I'm sure that, he's a center. You're playing him out of position because you had to. You had some injuries along the way. He's your fourth guard. He's your swing interior lineman. He can kind of go all over the place. I get that. But, there's no polishing this one up. He had a really rough day.
It was bad. And we're going to continue to break this one down. And tomorrow we're going to feel a lot better because we got a lot of things to be optimistic about with this Rams team. That's going tomorrow for this episode, though. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. You can follow the People Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers, at Travis Rogers. And until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams House.